Just bought this wood for an upcoming project. And it felt like it was eye-wateringly expensive. But it got me thinking, is this wood actually overpriced? And if it is there a better way to find wood for building furniture when you're just starting out? So I've had a route around in the scraps bin and I've pulled out a few options of projects that I've made in the past and some that I've got coming up in the future. And I'm going to explain to you why I think that the cheapest options aren't always what you think they are. And I'll tell you why I think this overpriced oak is better for beginners than free pallet wood. Didn't see that coming, did you? Hey, Pete here from Northern Works. First time I tried to build furniture was over 20 years ago. I was 19, and the thing that stopped me wasn't tools, it was wood. I just didn't know anything about it. I didn't really know there were different types of wood, if I'm honest, and I definitely didn't know where to buy it. But I just moved into a half-furnished cottage on a farmyard in rural Cumbria, and I needed a coffee table. So I went to the one place I knew of that did sell wood. It's a bit bigger than the one in Penrith was 20 years ago. Now, of course, there is a lot of wood at your big DIY shop, but most of it is specialist stuff like decking or mouldings or rough construction timber. All of this is way too rough to make good furniture, but you can also find planed all-round pine, which is smooth on all sides and comes in a variety of pre-sized boards. So this is what 19-year-old me grabbed all those years ago. But pretty quickly I found out that this isn't the right wood for making fine furniture. Let me show you. The main issues with cheap DIY shop pine is that it's very soft, which means it comes with a lot of dents or chips. And because it's produced very quickly and then sits out in the cold, damp warehouse, it can end up with some serious warps, like cupping or twisting. And the white pine just isn't a very nice looking finish. And so combined with the fact that I didn't really know what I was doing, the whole thing ended up just a bit disappointing. Now remember, this was the early 2000s, so there wasn't really an internet for me to go and find the answers. And there was definitely no YouTube. And I didn't know anyone more experienced who could help me out, so I just sort of stopped. I mean, I made bits and bobs over the year, but I never tried fine furniture again, at least not until a couple of years ago. But I don't mean to say that softwoods like pine are always bad for furniture. It just depends on which wood you're using and how you use it. This is Redwood Pine, which is a lot more hard wearing than the whitewood pine that you normally find in a DIY shop. And the best place to find this is a local timber merchant. I like to buy mine online because it means that I can properly research exactly what I need and see the full price, and they'll normally deliver. I used redwood to make this workbench and the bed upstairs, both pretty beefy projects, but I also used it when I wanted to practice some fine joinery, like the desk that I made a couple of years ago. This can be a really good option if you need planed all round, three-dimensioned timber for your projects, but it's not the best choice if you're looking to make big panels. For that, you need sheet materials. This is OSB, or Oriented Strand Board, which is basically a bunch of scraps of wood that have been pressed together with glue to make a really hard-wearing but quite heavy material. It might not be everyone's cup of tea for fine furniture, but it can be really useful for things like workshop furniture, or if you're into that trendy coffee shop aesthetic. Then you've got plywood, which again is a really good material, especially if you're doing things that use large panels like cabinets or bookshelves, or you could go the full mid-century modern and make something like a coffee table. But you do need something that can cut a long straight edge, like a circular saw or something like that. And then you've also got MDF. Moving on. I'm sort of kidding. It's fine if you've got big flat panels, but it's not right for fine furniture. Plus, it makes a massive mess of the workshop every time you cut into it. Now, you can get good quality sheet goods at your DIY shops, and a lot of the shops will have a cutting service. So you could get all of your panels cut down to the right size right there in the shop. But you need to be really picky about the boards you choose. Look out for major face defects, and especially any voids between the plies. I've also only ever seen hardwood and pine plywood at the DIY shop. And while you can make furniture from these, they tend to be low quality and they don't give you a great finish. If you're looking for better quality furniture grade plywood, you're probably better off going online. Maybe check out a few local woodworking forums and be prepared to try a few suppliers before you find one that you like. So, softwood is cheap, but can be a little bit low quality for fine furniture. Sheet materials can be really inconsistent and, let's be honest, not to everyone's taste, which is why most furniture makers eventually end up looking at hardwood. I wasn't. I only read it for the articles. Hardwoods, like ash and beech and even this oak, which I did actually find in the big orange DIY shop, although there you can only get it in small strips used for finishing or decorating cabinets and whatnot. Other than that, I haven't really found a lot of hardwood in DIY shops, so for that stuff you normally end up going to a specialist timber merchant. I've only used hardwoods for a couple of projects so far, including this stool where I used ash to make the legs, but it is hardwoods that I'm using for almost all of my upcoming projects. And just like with softwood, there's a few ways that you can buy hardwoods. You can usually get it as rough sawn boards or planed and dimensioned. Rough sawn is usually cheaper, but you will need a way of taking that rough wood and turning it into a smooth piece of wood that you can use for furniture. Whereas if you get planed all round boards, then it is usually going to cost you a bit extra, but it'll already be planed and dimensioned to the size that you need. And usually you just need to do a bit of finish sanding rather than taking a planer to it. So planed all round wood is going to be more expensive to buy in the first place, but because you don't need any big machinery or the skills to be able to use them, it's going to be a better option for beginners. Now I have found a small selection of hardwood boards in the DIY shop. So if you've been seduced by the rustic aesthetic of a waney edge coffee table, then you might be able to find something that you can sand flat, but you need to be really picky about which board to choose, as most of them have got large knot voids, and in some cases even huge splits, which for this price is outrageous. A much better option if you're looking for waney edge boards or slabs is to go and find a local specialist and take a look around. Most of the folks that I've spoken to have been more than happy to help, and some specialist timber yards will even flatten boards for you before you take them home. One thing to remember with hardwoods is that even if it's been planed all round, it'll still keep moving. So those lovely flat boards that you bought online, by the time they actually reach you, they might be a bit cupped or twisted. If you don't have any way of milling wood at home, then buying shorter boards can reduce the risk of wood movement ruining your project and costing you a fortune as well. And I would recommend that you invest in even just a cheap hand plane and learn how to flatten boards. I'll leave a link to a good YouTube video in the description below. Overall though, I do reckon hardwoods can be a good, accessible option for beginner furniture makers. You just have to take your time and plan your projects well. You can even use wood like this from the DIY shop with very limited set of tools to make some furniture. You have to watch my next video to see what I mean about that. Okay, so I can already hear some people shouting away in the comments in all caps, but Pete, you forgot about pallets. They're free and they're the best wood that beginners can use. But honestly, I don't think they are. Here's a couple of pretty average British pallets, and I know that they're different in other parts of the world, but all of the ones that I've seen are pretty awful. They're full of knots, they're made of cheap pine, they've got splits in them, and before I can even use them, I'm going to have to take them apart, take all the bloody nails out. Now I know you can make some beautiful stuff out of pallets if you glue it, plane it, mill it, turn it into blanks and reshape it into the right dimensions that you want. But does that sound like a simple way of getting started in making furniture if you've only got a few tools? Absolutely not. The cheapest wood isn't always the best wood for beginners. Well, that's what I know after a couple of years of making projects with a bunch of different types of wood, and hopefully it's been useful if you're just starting out. And if you have been doing this for a while, then get in the comments and tell us about your favourite places to get wood. I really wish that YouTube had been around 20 years ago. I might have carried on building furniture if I could, but I'm glad it's here now, and I love making these videos for you now. So stick around and see what I'm up to next week, including what I'm planning to do with this oak. And if you fancy supporting the channel, then why not pick up a mug or, a nice cozy hoodie from northernworks.co. See you again.